Assalamu alaikum student. Today I'm going to teach you soliloquy number 3. So let's start. Okay students, before starting that soliloquy number 3, I would like to teach you to tell you about the context of that soliloquy, that what has happened before that soliloquy. So first of all, um, I'll tell you that before that soliloquy, Claudius summoned two of Hamlet's class fellows, Rosencrantz and Guildenstern, uh, to find out the reason of Hamlet's madness. So you will see that Claudius is very much doubtful about the condition of Hamlet, and he want to know the reality, although he himself is a mysterious person. And next point is that Polonius reveals as a spy of Claudius. So it is very much clear that Polonius works as a spy of Claudius, and he is more loyal to Claudius than of Hamlet. So Polonius also helps to Claudius to find out the reality of Hamlet, and he makes a plan, that Polonius knows that Hamlet likes his daughter Ophelia, so he makes a plan that he will lose Ophelia when Hamlet will be in library, because he thinks that Hamlet will reveal his original personality before his daughter Ophelia. So he makes a plan with Claudius that they will both hide themselves in tapestry, and they will watch them, both of them, to know the reality. So it is the plan of Claudius to know about Hamlet's plan or reality. And there is also um a tension between the borders of country Norway uh, and Denmark also. So there is a tension between the borders of these two countries, and Fortinbras is also looking forward to take revenge of his father's death. So these all are the factors, the important factor which I would like you to know about the context before that soliloquy. Okay, okay, let's move to the next. Okay, students, let's start with the text. The first line of the text is, "Now I am alone." It means that now Hamlet is alone here, and he starts speaking to himself. Oh, what a rogue and peasant slave am I! Is it not monstrous that this player here, but in a fiction, in a dream of passion, could force his soul's soul to his own conceit? It means that here Hamlet is accusing himself. He is accusing himself of being the ignorant and being the dishonest. Rogue means dishonest, and peasant. Peasant is normally, we used to say that it is farmer, but here it means that Hamlet is referring peasant to the ignorance. He is accusing himself that what a rogue, what a dishonest and ignorant slave, a person am I. It is not monstrous, it is not a big shameful thing for him that this player here. Player means a performer. Before that soliloquy, there was a performance in the court. In that court, the court means uh, that area where all king, queen, and all their faculty were there. So here, after this soliloquy was after that performance. So he is referring to that player, to that performer, uh, about in a fiction, in a dream of passion, that in that fiction, in that uh, in that performance, and a dream of passion means that apparently that performer is in passion. Fine. here Hamlet is saying that first line he is accusing himself of being the dishonest and disloyal and ignorant person, and in second line he's saying that this performer is more passionate, more loyal to his work than Hamlet, because in that fiction, in that drama or performance, the player is doing uh, more than Hamlet. He is performing more than Hamlet. So he's saying that, is it not monstrous that this player here, monstrous means the inhumane action. He's saying that this performance is more passionate than Hamlet's work, than Hamlet's revenge. So he's saying that in that fiction, Hamlet, the performer is doing more, and he's doing this proudly, could force his soul so that the soul of that performer and the gesture in the next lines when he says visaged want, then he is relating his soul and his expression, his physical expression, that he is doing his performance very proudly, that he is the performer who is performing very proudly in a passion, in a loyalty than of Hamlet. So he is comparing that performer with himself. I think you will understand it. And in next lines, he's saying that in next lines Hamlet is saying that from her working all his visaged want, and he is referring to the image. Visage means the image or the aspect of something. So he is referring the expression of that performer, that his expression, his physical expression, and his soul that is full of pride. These two things, the internal and external, both expressions are very passionate and uh, very wonderful than Hamlet's work. So all the actions and the reactions of that performer and his expression suits to him. Like he is very wonderful, very competent in his performance than of Hamlet. So Hamlet is here revealing his hamartia of procrastination, of delaying uh, his revenge, and he is saying that performer is much more doing, much more working than Hamlet. Students, in this slide, there is a continuity of the text. In these lines, Hamlet is again observing the depth of that performance. Hamlet is saying that tears in his eyes, distraction in us aspect, a broken voice, and his whole function suiting with form to his conceit, and all for nothing. So you see that Hamlet is observing the performance of that actor, and he's saying that tears in his eyes, that he's performing so passionately, so wonderfully, that he can see the tears in the eyes of that performance, and distraction in its aspect, a broken voice. Distraction means that distraction has also an attraction. That distractions show that how that performance is performing very passionately. It means that that distraction is not in a negative sense, but when we are so much in grief, Then we used to speak incomplete sentences. We used to speak, and our gestures are totally weird, and we feel as if we are distracted, and we feel that as if we are lost in this world, but actually we are performing. So here the distraction is not that he is not competent in his work, but distraction means that he is expressing that weird sentences, that incomplete sentences and weird gesture to show that how deeply he is performing. Fine. And the broken voice, that the grief or the melancholy of that performer shows the broken voice here refers the depth of his feel, and Hamlet is one who is feeling that depth of that performer, means he is observing and relating himself with the performer because he himself is very grieved uh, of, on the death of his father. So he's saying he's he is feeling, and he's saying that his whole function suiting with forms to his conceit, that the whole function, as I told you, the internal and external expression of that performer, that suiting to his performance, and all the form to his conceit. Conceit here means that how proudly, how arrogantly he's speaking, or he is delivering um, his dialogues. Next line is, and all for nothing, that he is doing all for nothing, that he is only performing. There is no depth, no uh, there is no context of his performance like Hamlet has. Hamlet is internally grieved, internally sad, but the the performance of that actor is apparently, that is why he's saying that all for nothing, that he is so passionate, he's so feeling, he has tears in his eyes, his gestures are so so much, his body language is so much expressive, but all this performance ends in nothing. That is only a performance. So he says that all for nothing, that he is only performing a fiction or a dream of passion, as he said before. The next line is, for Hecuba. What's Hecuba to him, or he to Hecuba? That he should weep for her? What would he do? Had he the motive and the cue for passion that I have? Here, here the performer has some dialogues related to or the with reference to Hecuba. Hecuba is a reference towards Greek mythology, a Greek mythology that is related with the Trojan War. And Hecuba had 19 children, and Hecuba's husband, that is Priam, he was killed in that war. And he is relating the grief of Hecuba with the uh, grief of himself, like his grief. The performer is performing with the dialogues of Hecuba or with the reference of Hecuba. Understand? And the performer is saying or referring his grief to Hecuba's grief. And Hecuba is the reference of Greek mythology. She is the classical queen of Trojan War. Hecuba was the wife of Priam, who stands. I means that Hecuba is the reference of Greek mythology, and on the death of his husband, Hecuba stood helplessly when his husband Priam was murdered. Here, the performer is relating his grief with Hecuba's grief, but Hamlet is relating the performer's and Hecuba's grief with his own grief. And Pyrrhus was the person who killed Priam, who killed Hecuba's husband. Here, Hamlet is relating Pyrrhus with Claudius and Priam with his father, King Hamlet. And he's relating Hecuba's grief, that Hecuba was a mourning lady, a mourning woman, that when she was taken to Pyrrhus, or taken by Pyrrhus. I don't know where he took her. So here you will understand, you will only memorize the Greek mythology of Hecuba, Priam, and Pyrrhus. That Hamlet is relating this triangle, this story, with his own story, and he is relating Hecuba's grief with his own grief, not his mother's grief, because in previous soliloquy he says that, "O pernicious woman," that he is considering his mother a wicked, a false, an evil woman. So here he is relating Hecuba's grief with his own grief, and Pyrrhus with Claudius, and Priam with his father, King Hamlet. So come to the line that he should weep for her. What would he do? Had he the motive and the cue for passion that I have? That the performer is weeping for Hecuba, for Hecuba's grief. And he's saying that he's weeping for her for nothing. What would he do? Like, uh, there is no result of weeping like that. And he's saying that had he the motive and the cue for passion, that had he the aim, the goal of doing something for Hecuba. Like Hecuba is the classical example of Greek mythology now. So why the performer is weeping for Hecuba without any goal, without any motive? But Hamlet has the motive, Hamlet has the goal, and he has the same situation, same grief as Hecuba had. Here, Hamlet is feeling the broken voice of that performer, the distraction, the tears, and the expression, the internal and external uh, gestures, and the depth of that performance. Actually, the depth of that performance, the um, internal conflict, as he's feeling with the performer and relating his grief with his own grief. So, in these lines, you have Hamlet's real conflict, that he is only feeling a passive person. Hamlet is a passive person. He is only feeling the things and relating the things instead of doing something practically. Fine. I hope you will understand it. Let's move to the next slide. Students, next textual lines are: he would drone the stage with tears and cleave the journal air with horrid speech. Here again, Hamlet is referring the lines, the performance of that player. That he's saying that the tears that he has witnessed in the eyes of that performer, he's saying that he would drone the stage with tears, that he's so much in the grief that of Hecuba, and he's saying that he Hamlet is saying that he would drone the stage with tears, that he's so much in the grief that his tear will that the tears will come out, and and the whole stage will filled with the tears. With uh, that tears uh, are like flood-like tears. That are the floody tears that will drown the stage. And secondly, he's saying that the clave the journal air with horrid speech. That the words, the speech, the sentences are uh, so much that the speech is so much uh, filled with disgust, with terror, with fear. So he's saying that all the speech is very terrible, very disgusting, very horrible, and he's saying that it will cleave that journal layer. It will uh, break the journal air with with the words that horrible words. And in the next line he says that make mad the guilty and appall the free. That the that horror and that the fear of that horror will will appall the free and make mad the guilty. uh, it is somehow a psychological condition of the guilty person that he'll and confess his crime, that he is guilty, and he'll free the person who is not guilty. And in the next line he says that the confound the ignorant and amaze indeed the very faculties of eyes and ears. That he's saying that confound the ignorant means that he is expressing his anger to the ignorance to the ignorant person, and he's saying that he'll amaze indeed the very faculties of eyes and ears. That the power of eyes that are witnessing the person, uh, that are watching the person's expression and observing, and the that ears are listening that speech, the stress of that speech, the emphasis of the words, and the and feeling the horror. Fine. So here again these lines refer to the performer who is performing on the stage, and again Hamlet is relating his speech with his own condition. Somehow you can say that that speech is, and the expression, the gesture, the conflict, and each and everything of that performer is the reflection of Hamlet's own internal and external condition. Fine. Okay, students, the textual lines in the slides are: yet I, a dull and a muddy melted rascal, speak, like Jonah dreams unpregnant of my cause. Here, Hamlet is accusing himself by saying a dull. Dull means an inactive person, inactive like passive person. And muddy melted rascal means that he is unable to respond to his father's death. So he is muddy melted. That he is a melted in his passion. He is a melted rascal person who is unable to respond to his father's death. And in the next line, he says that like Jonah Dream. Jonah Dream means it is a nickname uh, for dreamer, the person who usually dreams. Then we call him a Jonah Dream person. And unpregnant of my cause, unpregnant means there is no thought, no plan, no goal, no aim in his life. And he's saying that like a dreamer, like a Jonah dreams mean like he is like a dreamer who is doing nothing about his cause, and he is only speaking to himself. He is only a passive person who is very active in his speeches rather than in actions. In the next line, he says that, and can say nothing, no, not for a king. The king means King Hamlet. This line is referred to his own father, that he is saying nothing, even not for his father, upon whose property and most dear life, that this kingdom is the property of King Hamlet, and he is the person who is living a better life on the property of his father, on the expense of his father, and most dear life. That life he is spending is the most precious life, the most a very good life. And he is saying that a damn defeat was made. And here he is so much passive, he is so much hopeless, that he is saying that this is the damn defeat, that he a coward person, that he is not doing anything, is he a passive person, he is unpregnant of any kind of thought, any kind of goal or aim in his life. So he is accusing, as well as he is analyzing himself, that what kind of person he is, that a person uh, who wants to take revenge of his father's death, but he is doing nothing, just talking rubbishly, and just making the foul plans, unpractical plans. So he is analyzing here himself. I hope you will understand it. Okay, students, in this slide, the textual lines are: who calls me villain, break my pet across, plucks off my beard and blows it in my face, tweaks me by the nose, gives me the lie, I have the throat, as deep as to the lungs. Who does me this? Okay, see the first line. Who calls me villain? Villain is the person who is not hero, who is the evil type of person. And in these lines, Hamlet is considering himself a villain. Why? Think about it. He is calling himself a villain. This is his internal voice, that he is calling himself villain, because villain is a person who is not in favor of good deeds. And here, Hamlet is not doing something practically, is, in a sense, he is favoring Claudius by doing nothing. So he is taking the side of villain Claudius, and by doing nothing, he is also like a villain who favors the crime. So this is his internal voice, who calls me villain, break my pet across. Pat means his head, that his who breaks his head across, plucks off my beard and blows it in my face. That who is doing all this to me? It means that it is his internal feeling, that he, that a person who is shaking his body, like shaking his body means उसको झंझोड़ रहा है, ठीक है. Shaking his body means that he want him to do something. He is shaking his body, like he's petting his head across, he's plucking off his beard, and blows it to his face, tweaks me by the nose, like a chedchad with his body, that someone is doing all this to his body, in a sense to shake him, to awake him, to uh, to inactive him, like to active him. He is inactive, he is passive, and all This refers to make him active, to make him passionate, to revive him, to to make him a live person, to a logical person, to think about, to do something practically. So he's saying that who does me this? In the last, he is questioning to himself that who does me this? It means he's the person, he himself is doing all this to himself. Understand? Means he is the person who is doing all this, like patting his head across, plucking off his beard, and blowing that beard to his face, and tweaking his nose, and gives me the lie I had thought, like a lie of deception. ठीक है? A lie of misguiding. That lie that is so deep in his lungs that all is fine. What lie? What kind of lie is this? That all is fine. But apparently all is fine, externally all is fine, but internally Hamlet is so depressed, so much hopeless and helpless. I hope you will understand it. Okay, students, in this slide, the textual lines are: ha, sounds, I should take it, for it cannot be. But I'm a pigeon levered and a lake god. The first line, ha, sounds. Sound, sounds or sounds. Sounds mean sword. I should take it that he is thinking about to take a sword and take the revenge. But in the next line, he is again saying that for it cannot be, but I'm a pigeon livered. Pigeon livered means that he has a small heart, that he has no courage, and he's saying that he is lacking courage, he is a coward. And pigeon livered refers to the coward person who is lacking courage, and he is lacking courage because he does not do anything up till now. So he's saying that he is like a coward person lacking courage to take the revenge. One side he's saying that he want to take sword and take the revenge. But secondly, for instance, he is thinking that he is internally so coward, so weak that he could not take the revenge by taking sword. And in the next lines, to make oppression bitter. It means that he want to make that person a cruel example of this present situation. So he's saying that, or array. Array means before. This I should have petted all the region kites. Here the kites are not a sort of toy, but it is referred to the birds. It is referred to the birds that eat insects and small mammals. So, to clarify another thing that is offal, offal is the internal organ of animal being eaten. So, it is a connection between kite and offal. So, he says that uh, he will make Claudius a bitter example, and he's relating that he's making that connection between kite and offal, and he imagines the pain he wants to give his uncle. And in the next line, he describes his uncle as a villain plus a few other things that are given in these lines, like a treacherous, a bloody body villain, remorseless. the treacherous, the lecherous, kindless villain. These all words refer to Claudius and his crime, that how much he is um, a criminal minded person who is bloody, who murdered his father, and then who is lecherous, who is unloyal to his father, and who is body means having sexual desires, but in a very humorous way. So he is not a serious person, he is a villain, and remorseless means regretless, that he is not regretting um, of his crime. And next is treacherous. Treacherous means the betrayal of trust, that a person who is not trustworthy. And lecherous is also related with sexual desires, that he is going to marry his mother. And next is kindless villain. So he is abusing, in a sense of abusing Claudius with all these titles, all these bad names that reveals the actual personality of Claudius. In this slide, the textual lines are: O vengeance, why, what an ass am I! This is most brave that I, the son of a dear father murdered, prompted to my revenge by heaven and hell, must, like a boar, unpack my heart with words and fall, a cursing like a very trap, a seclusion. Here, Hamlet is complaining against himself. He is calling, "Oh vengeance," "Oh" means "Oh revenge," that he want to take revenge, but he is calling revenge as if that revenge is his god. Why, what an ass am I! He is complaining and abusing, accusing himself for achieving nothing. And in next line he says, "This is most brave that I, the son of the dear father murdered." He's saying that, is this me? Is this me who is acting like an ass? That I am the son of the dear father, that he is the beloved son of his father, King Hamlet. And he is very much hopeless and helpless about his condition, that he is doing nothing, he is achieving nothing, he is not taking revenge, but he is he himself is very coward, feeling coward, and he's something like he's feeling less, that he's not understanding his conflict, his condition, and he is on two extremes. He want to take revenge, but practically he is doing nothing. In the next line, he's saying that revenge by heaven and hell must like a war. That he is calling the evil and good spirit. That he is saying that the gods of heaven and the satans of hell, there is a tug of war between them. Like Satan, it is the satanic mind that who supported Claudius to achieve in his goal to murder King Hamlet. But he is calling both of them that he himself is acting like like a person who is um, traveling on two sides. He want to take revenge, but he is doing nothing, and he is full of passion, he is full of spirit, but he is not finding any way to take revenge. So he is considering himself like a whore, a prostitute. Unpack my heart with words, like be a practical person, be a person of logical reason and take the revenge. So here he himself is um, very he himself is very much upset that he criticizes his own inaction, calling himself a whore. And a seclusion means a servant who is assigned for the kitchen task, and he's saying himself a drap means a small quantity of water, a drop of water. And in previous lines, he it was his wish to be a water, and want to lost himself in a sea. So here again um, he's again saying that he want to be a water, a drop of water, because he's doing nothing. And even he's saying nothing about the king. He's behaving like a servant who is assigned for the kitchen task, means that who silently stand there and obeys his master. In that reference, he is a seclusion. He is calling himself a seclusion. I hope you will understand it. So, students, in this slide, the textual lines are 5 upon 4. About my brain. Here in this line, he has an idea in his mind, and he is feeling uninterest feeling upon about that play that is being performed at that time in the court. So he has an idea, and he says 4 means the front part of house. I mean the court. At that time when the play was he- um, at that time the play was performing there, and he's referring that he has no more interest in that play, and he has an idea in his mind. I have heard that guilty creatures sitting at a play. Who is the guilty creatures? Of course, Claudius. And he is continuously he is thinking about Claudius and making plan how to make Claudius to confess his crime. So he's saying that he has an idea in his mind how to make Claudius uh, guilty. Have by a very cunning of the scene been struck so to the soul that presently they have proclaimed their malfunctions, that there is a scene which is based on cunningness. So he is relating that cunningness with Claudius, and he's saying that he's himself is a cunning person, and how he has been stuck off to see that cunningness and that malfunctions. Malfunctions mean uh, that that something that has failed to function properly. So and proclaimed mean that announcement, that something that is being announced. So he is announcement means the speech or the dialogue, that how the dialogue of that performance making him so stunned. So and the evilness, that male function is the evilness or the cunningness of that scene, and how he is, these all things are making Claudius very struck off, very shocked about the evilness, and he is relating that evilness with the murder. For murder, though it have no tongue, will speak with most miraculous organ. And he's saying that the evil has its own language, and the murder of King Hamlet, though it have no tongue, that there is no proof that Claudius has murdered him. No tongue means no proof, but will speak with most miraculous organ, that he himself will confess miraculously, and he himself will confess his crime and his guilt. Fine, I hope you will understand it. Um, so in these lines, Hamlet has the intention to expose the guilt of Claudius, and he want to expose that evil that is inside within the Claudius, inside the Claudius, and he want to expose that evil and want that evil to come out and speak about that guilt, about that murder, that he has done this. Fine. So class, the textual lines are: I have these players play something like the murder of my father before my uncle. Here, Hamlet is thinking uh, about making a play that he want to perform all the actual incident in the form of that play, and uh, he is thinking that he will use the same players, that he will give them script and he will give them story, um, based on actual instance of the death, of the murder of his father. So he's saying that he will perform all the play before his uncle, and he won't. And in next line he says that I'll observe his looks, I'll tempt him to the quick. If he but blunt, I know my course. He says that while performing that actual instance in the form of that play, he will witness the expression or the body language of Claudius while performing that incident, and the gestures of Claudius or the body language of Claudius will tell Hamlet what is truth and what is lie. He says that I know my course, that I know my procedure, I know my goal, the way I'm going to do it. The spirit that I have seen may be the devil. Here, Hamlet is again double mind, and he is saying that maybe that spirit is not telling him the truth, because he know that the devil has power, and due to that power, by using that power, he can become the shape of his dead father, and he is assuming that maybe the spirit is not telling him the truth, and he want to take him to the wrong way. So he want some logical providence, he want some logical proof. So he want to perform a play based on that actual instance to find out the truth. And in the last line, he says, yeah, and perhaps out of my weakness and my melancholy. He says that maybe I'm so much grieved, I'm so much helpless, so that maybe it is my internal, uh, uh, you can say that it is my grief that I have seen my father in the form of ghost, and he told me something like that. Maybe that is based on truth or not. And so he said that maybe out of that weakness and out of that melancholy, that sadness, that grief, maybe I have taken the ghost story as a real story. Okay, this is the last slide, and the text of this slide is: as he's very potent, with such spirit, abuses me to damn me. I'll have grounds more relative than this, the place, the thing wherein I'll catch the conscience of the king. Here, Hamlet is saying, and these lines are related with the previous lines, as I have told you, that Hamlet needs some sort of evidence and that evidence, uh, I mean, he want to expose the real story, and he to know the real, to know the reality, he wants some evidence. And he says that maybe that ghost was based on the false story, and maybe that ghost would be a devil. So uh, that, and due to his weakness and his melancholic state, uh, he has witnessed that ghost, and he is cons- considering that devil, that evil, uh, in in the form of his dead father, because of the melancholy, because of that grief and that sadness. So he says that it may be possible that his uncle is innocent in all this situation, and that devil is trying to trying to portray a false story in front of him in to confuse him, and that spirit is making him fool or making him damn. So he is saying that maybe that spirit is distracting him, uh, and he want to portray all the situation in a very negative way. So he'll say that I'll have grounds more relative than this, that he want to make the proof or to find out the proof of that crime, and make the reality, make his grounds to find out that truth uh, very strong. He want to make his grounds very strong to find out the reality. So he plan a play, as he says that the play is the thing wherein I'll catch the conscience of the king. So uh, while performance, he will witness, he will observe the conscience of king. He will witness the gesture, the expression, that maybe he 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 is the person who is murderer, or maybe he is the person who is the innocent person, a loving person to his mother. So Hamlet is going to find out the reality through that play, and that is the end of this soliloquy. Thank you very much.